Sweet promises give to all who believe. Behold, I come quickly, mine own to receive. Hold fast till I come, the danger is great. Sleep not as do others.
Welcome to Bible Talk class. We are now looking at the messages to the seven messengers of the seven churches in Asia. To better understand the messages, we must first understand the historical context or settings of the seven churches. We need to know the location of these churches and appreciate the social, political, religious, cultural, economic background or settings of these churches and how these conditions or backgrounds may have affected the well-being of these churches. And so we want to begin with the church in Ephesus. And we find the message to the messenger of the church in Ephesus in Revelation chapter 2, verses 1 to 7. Now, the historical context is here. Ephesus was founded in 11th century BC. Ephesus means desirable or having relaxed, and this city was located about 60 miles from Patmos, where John had his visions. It was the largest, principal commercial and religious city, an official gateway to Asia. If you wanted to come to Asia, let's say from the west, you needed to land in Ephesus, and you could then go into other cities in Asia. It hosted the Asian Pan-Ionian Games, like Olympic Games today, and boasted of 2 temples of the emperor. It had built 2 temples for the emperor. Now, it also boasted of the temple of Artemis or Diana when you read Acts chapter 19, verses 27 to 35, and also magical arts, Acts chapter 19, verse 19. And so we see how Paul even clashed with some people in Ephesus. It was a notable place for religious activities and known for the temple of Artemis or Diana. And this temple was actually considered as the greatest temple in Asia Minor. Why? Because many people trooped there for blessings. Artemis, a Greek goddess, was considered the goddess of fertility, a goddess who provided everything that one needed. And therefore, it was very important in Ephesus and in Asia Minor. And that is the point that you want to stress. The city's famous philosopher called Heraclitus wept for its moral depravity. You can appreciate the situation. Many people met there. It was a cosmopolitan city. Many cultures melted there. And people brought different moral barometers. And so people could do anything that they wanted. And this philosopher, of course, he was not a Christian, he was not a Jew, was a Greek, wept for the city's moral depravity. The morality was very bad and low. The church in Ephesus was founded by Aquila and Priscilla, Acts chapter 18, and Apollos. And this church was confirmed by Paul, according to Acts chapter 20, verse 31. In fact, Paul spent almost 3 years in this church or in this city. And he stayed there, he taught them. Later on, he posted Timothy there to serve them and protect them from false teachings. It is believed that John and Mary, the mother of Jesus, left Jerusalem for Ephesus when Jerusalem was surrounded by the Roman soldiers. And Timothy was martyred in this city. It was this city that John lived. and also died. This is a picture of Altamus, the temple of Artemis in Ephesus. It's a reconstruction. You can actually appreciate the magnificent picture that we have here. Ephesus had a library, beautiful library, as you can see here, and also had what we call amphitheater, a place where people could easily gather and play. This is also a road that was constructed in Ephesus, and the road is still there today. When you go to Turkey, this is where we find this road. John, the apostle of Jesus Christ, son of Zebedee, was buried. This is a place in Ephesus. Now, let's look at the message to the messenger of the church in Ephesus. This is a message. Jesus has control over the whole church as he holds the 7 stars in his right hand. Chapter 2, verse 1, Jesus is described as one holding the 7 stars. It means, I hold the leaders. They are in my hands. I control them. They say what I say. And that the church is in my hands. The church is ensured doctrinal orthodoxy, but was spiritually dead in its love for God and one another. This church has ensured that nobody taught false teaching. This church prevented false teachers, and Jesus said, I'm happy about this attitude. And that is what we find. And indeed, Paul even warned the church that after his demise, or after he had left them, false teachers will invade the church. And so the church should be always on guard and should be ready to prevent such people from infiltrating. And the church did that. And Jesus said, thank you very much. The church has resisted the influence of the Nicolaitans, a heretic group that encouraged participation in pagan festivities. It is believed that one of the 7 deacons that were appointed to manage the distribution of food in Acts chapter 6, called Nicholas, later on taught that it was okay to eat food offered to idols and at the same time celebrate the Lord's Supper, because you just only have to pray over food offered to idols and nothing will harm you. And so this teaching gained grounds, and many people appreciated this teaching. And somehow, many people fell for this teaching. But this church in Ephesus did not barge in, did not accept this teaching, and drove those false teachers away. And Jesus said, I'm happy for you doing that. This problem is that it failed to revive its pure love for God and one another. First love. Jesus actually made clear that if you fail to do that, if you fail to revive your pure love, because I see that I don't have true love for God, for what you do things because they have been there, things because they are the traditions, but you don't love God from your heart. You are not motivated to do the right thing because you love God. You don't love your neighbors. You don't love anyone. Whatever you do is plastic. And that, if you do not change, I'll come and collapse this church as I did to Israel. And this message is important. And so the problem with this church was the motivation for serving God and serving humanity. Their motivation did not stem from their love for what God has done for them through Jesus. It was just because we have to do it. It was just because we have been in the church for so many years. Now, the overcomer will symbolically eat the tree of life to live forever. So the overcomer here refers to an individual in the church. Even though the message is addressed to the entire church, Jesus expected each of them as church members, each, to respond to the message as an individual and overcome and continue to and begin to renew or revive his or love for God and for one another. If that person is able to do that, then that person will have eternal life. And so the imagery used here to symbolize eternal life is tree of life. Why? Because Adam and Eve were prevented from eating that fruit. And so Jesus is using this imagery to communicate the message of or hope of eternal life. It is not that there will be a literal tree that will give them life. It's a tree of life, tree that gives life. And that is an Old Testament concept that is borrowed here to communicate eternal life. Because once you are saved and Jesus comes and you are transformed, your eternity has been sealed. And therefore, you don't need to eat any fruit to continue to live. That is the picture that you want to stress here. I hope you have understood this passage. So thank you very much for appreciating this presentation. We move on to the next message, and we hope you join us. See you and share with the world and be a member of Bible Talk class. Have a nice day. Bye.
Sweet promises given to all who believe. Behold, I come quickly, mine own to receive. Hold fast till I come, the danger is great. Sleep not as do I.